justice.
No, it doesn't.
I'm so sorry. I was thinking it was a robotic thing, and I like looked in. I was like,
Hey guys, we're over here at the Fantastic Horror Shop, VHS, and we're here with Jason, who is the creator of everything you're about to see here. Now, I've been following you on TikTok for a while now.
Awesome.
I have been fascinated with all of your creations.
Very cool, thank you.
What got you started into everything that you do here?
The Evil Dead stuff got started in, being a young kid watching horror movies and then growing up. The reason I got started building chainsaw hands is because the first convention I went to, they ever got a chance to meet Bruce Campbell, they wouldn't let me take it. The convention I went to wouldn't let me take my real chainsaw hand in. So I had to make one out of EVA foam because I'm not going to go meet Bruce Campbell and not have a chainsaw hand.
Right.
So I made the first one for me, got Bruce Campbell to sign it, met him, it was fantastic. Had somebody see a picture of it and they're like, I want one. And it just spiraled from there. And now I've sold them all around the world. So many pictures of them with Bruce Campbell and stuff. It's been amazing. So it's been really cool. And like I said, I make them in all different sizes. I even make one for my 4-year-old son. So that's pretty cool. And then with the rest of the stuff, it's just one of those things. When Terrifier came out, I jumped into the cosplay with doing Terrifier. And then just jumping into doing weapons and everything with all kinds of different movies and props from different movies. Getting involved with Permablood and selling all that stuff. And it's just exploded. It's a lot of cosplay props and a lot of collectibles that people love to be able to put on their shelf with the rest of their collectible stuff because it's pretty awesome and I love it. So yeah, it's pretty cool that I can make stuff for people that they put on their shelves, and it just brings a lot of happiness to their collection or their cosplay, adds that extra little bit to their cosplay when they're walking around and they have a prop or something like that. So
right,
yeah.
And you said you cosplay. I heard you yesterday. Is this Terrifier what you cosplay?
Yeah, this is Art the Clown from the movie Terrifier, and I've been cosplaying Art since 2018. Yep. So I've had all that stuff made, and I've made it, and I've been doing that before. I've cosplayed, of course, Ash Williams for many years, and I've done a lot of different cosplays. But my favorites of all times have been either doing Ash or doing Art the Clown, for sure.
Were you able to cosplay any at this con this year?
I did for a little bit, but not as Art because he's on the mannequin this year. That's it. I'm working for this. I had a different cosplay just to run around and goof off. Got to take a break from the booth for a minute. Yeah. But yeah, so.
Where can people find you?
You can find Fantastic Horror Shop on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and of course on Etsy. Fantastic Horror Shop on Etsy.
All right, let's take a tour. Some of this.
Let's take a tour. Awesome. Thank you, man.
I'm gonna get the chainsaw tomorrow good.
This is the last call. Huey Lewis and the News.
Not really.
Right here, Colonel Hannibal Sanders at your service. Would you like to try some of my 11 herbs and spices? They finger licking good.
Good stuff, man.
Thanks.
Oh, wow.
So they had one yesterday. There was somebody walking out with me.
Oh, that's amazing. Great. Oh, the Jaws is dope. Please, I want a friend. Those are filming in Cosplay.
Hi, gang. Hello. You should be here live. It's much more fun. So, we are Eerie Travels. We do the podcast twice a week, where we talk about myths, monsters, legends, ghosts, strange locations, all that. It's just what you're watching on this YouTube channel, but you just listen. But we have our books, our best-selling books, the 3 best-selling Florida books, and then our new one, Eerie Appalachia. And then my wonderful wife and illustrator, Carrie Schultz, also illustrated Unnatural Ohio, which just came out last month. So, but we're here, and you should be here, and you should follow these guys. Like, subscribe, that little button down there. Make sure you hit that, and then join us on Spotify and all the things. And then that's what you're here for, right? You want to know the stories. You want to know what's behind the truth, right, Robert? So, and then you can watch and learn all about Robert on Discovery Plus or Max. The Curse of Robert the Doll. So, and you want the 2023 documentary, not the 2016 terrible movie where they didn't have the rights, and the 2 filmmakers who made that have both died and in prison. So there you go. That just tells you, don't mess with Robert. So, see you on the other side. Oh man. Well, okay.
Okay, your laptop is wrong and dumb.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So we're here.
My phone wasn't good enough. He's like, I need to check my phone because it's going to be a different thing.
It's how these things work. So.
Okay, do you want to try to do an intro here?
Let's do an intro. So this is how we usually do our podcast, gang. So if you're here for the Jaws reunion, that's actually 2 doors down. Sorry, but if you're here for Spooky Cryptids of Kentucky, you are in the right place because I'm author Mark Muncie.
I'm author Erica Lance.
And this is Eerie Travels. That's our podcast open for those that do listen. How many people actually have listened to our podcast? Anybody? Oh, a few. Nice. Hey, great. Thanks.
Everyone else needs to subscribe
immediately. I'm going to let Erica shout because she's good at that, and my voice has already gone from being at 5 events in 1 week. So I should not do that as much as I do. But tonight, today, we are here at ScareFest, and we are here to talk cryptids of Kentucky. Now, I grew up in Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky. My father was a big wig with Greyhound, so we traveled all over the Appalachians, and so I got to know all these weird little hollers and know these little towns, and every town had a bus station in the 70s.
What is a holler?
All right, so Holler 101. How many people here live in a holler? How many people know what a holler is? Oh, quite a few. See, they don't need a 101, but just for those of you few that didn't raise your hands, it's basically a valley, a hollow, where you go into a small area, all those little side roads as you're driving down the interstate, and they go off to this exit, and then you take that exit, and then there's this other little side road. You're like, where the hell does that go? That's into a holler, and it's usually a family lives in there, and usually multiple families all live down this holler. And then the front of the holler is the mouth. And that's the people who protect the back. So they're the ones that when somebody comes in, say an author who's researching cryptids, they're the first ones to go, hey, some weird guy just drove into town. Let's put the big dogs out. And so the houses a little further start letting the big dogs out, especially if it's the tax man. We want those dogs out.
For the record, it doesn't matter if he goes into a holler, that happens to him everywhere.
But then when you get to the final, you get to the end of the holler, and that's called the head of the holler, and that's where the keepers are, the people who know the lore, the family, the meemaws, the peepaws, and that have told the stories for generations. That's where the big barn is. That's where they keep all the bunker of supplies for when the emergencies happen. But there it's also where they leave the offerings for the old man of the woods. That's where you leave your peanut butter. That's where you leave your rocks, your shiny rocks. That's also where they also look for, the little people, the fae, the punkwudgies, as the natives called them, which seems to be a little more northern up that area, but they do travel. In this area, they like to call them stump jumpers, which, because we can't have nice things. Everything has to have a stupid name, just warn you now. So we're starting on that road. So they're like little Sasquatch. They are hairy, they jump around. Some people have seen them. They're most often seen on the other side of Kentucky, over eastern Kentucky, and they are sometimes referred to as apple devils. Because what do? They steal our apples. So
they're apple devils because they steal apples. You don't have to do that.
Yes,
they
I
can
do.
all hear
Can
me.
they hear? Can you hear her without the
You
mic?
guys can hear me, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
fine.
thought.
I'll do my thing.
You mic it up, but we have the stump jumpers, the apple devils. I've never heard apple. Have you guys heard of an apple devil before?
That was the 8.
One person. I love the one in the back with the antlers.
Someone-
It's like I've heard of apple devils.
What was that? Your family's from Eastern Kentucky. Okay, great. So you and I, we're on those same hollers. So, and that's the beauty of these hollers. It's like some of these stories are only in the one valley. And you can go to the valley right next door, and they've got a completely different cryptid, monster, legend, ghost, whatever, and have no idea what you're talking about right there. And we kind of get that here nowadays in the cities. Like everybody, you go from Lexington. We all know, some of the Lexington ghosts and the Lexington haunted locations, but if you go to Louisville, it's a completely different, animal, and the people are like, oh, we don't talk about the Lexington ghosts.
They want holler monsters.
Yeah,
Get
so-
on with the holler monsters.
Okay. All right, so one of my favorites that is just one of those obscure ones, and the right people know of it. How many people here know Long Creek, Kentucky? 1, 2. Okay, 2. All right. Long Creek has, again, we can't have nice things, so it's named because it's a big long creek. But the big thing about it, what makes it different, is it actually goes underground for a little bit and then comes back out. Now, most, when they go underground, we never see them again because they get part of the Mammoth Cave complex. That's a whole other ballgame, and we never see these things again. This one goes underground and comes back up. Now, Long Creek has a creature that is 500 years old, as far as anyone knows, maybe even older, but that's how long it's been reported. It was recorded by the first peoples. It was recorded in some of their pottery and clay. It was recorded in some of their effigy mounds. We think it might have something to do with what we refer to as the Great Serpent. And we've kind of tied that into Mishapishu up in the Great Lakes area. He's tied into Serpent Mound over in Ohio. But this one, he's called the Long Creek Moccasin because he is a giant water moccasin. And the reason he is so feared is workers over in that area were one day near Long Creek. They'd gone fishing. They caught a big catfish, one of the biggest they'd ever caught, put it up on the shore. They were about ready to feast. And the giant head of the serpent came out
described as being 8 feet long, the head. The body, they estimated 30 to 40 feet long. As wide as a flour barrel, the newspaper reported. And the head stole the fish. And then they fought for the fish. And so...
I wouldn't fight.
Would
just
you
be
fight
like,
that?
"It's yours.
No.
It's good. I'll go get McDonald's. I'm fine. Thanks.
Hell no, thank you. You know, I'll catch another damn fish. It's great. You know, it's like, but these fought for it. Now that's a recurring theme in Kentucky. Just so we know, I'm going to continue this in a minute. We'll come back to that. But anyway, the fish jumps in the water. You know, the snake takes the fish into the water, and they follow it. They're like, we're going to get that fish back. Comes out after it goes under the ground. Comes out on the other side. And the fish is gone, so either it ate it or it's gone, and that's when they finally give up. So
That's when they give up?
that's when they give up.
I would not have done any of that.
No, you would have noped out
I
the
would have
minute you
known
saw
right
it.
out of that. I would have been like, I'm going to go home. Thanks.
So now the thing is though, because they attacked it, because they scared it, this thing had been living in peace with the world for generations. Now it sees man as an enemy, because it tried to steal its fish. Well, so now that is why when you go fishing near Long Creek, you're supposed to bring a big stick to beat the water in case after you catch a fish, beat the water, because otherwise the Long Creek moccasin might come up and steal your fish.
I hope everybody's taking notes if
That's
you're going to go fishing.
travel tip number 1.
Travel tip.
Travel tip number 1. All right. So, travel tip number 2. Let's go to another fun area. I like the Long Creek moccasin just because it's a silly story.
You say that until it jumps out and eats you.
And then we're done. So,
Yeah.
all right. So let's go a little spookier for our next one. Now, this is one I was talking with you about the other day. This is, we all know down in Florida, we can't have nice things either. So up here, a little further north, he's called Bigfoot. Little other sides, he's called Sasquatch. Down in Florida, we call him the skunk ape because we can't have nice things. Over here, we've got one in particular. This one is a little different from your usual Bigfoot and Sasquatch. This one is on western Kentucky. Not quite land between the lakes area. We'll get there in a minute. But this one is a little heftier than your usual Bigfoot Sasquatch. He's not as tall. He's around 6 to 7 feet tall, or most of them are 8 to 9 feet tall, according to most Bigfoot hunters. This one's 6 to 7 feet tall. He's a little hefty, so I like that. I like that he's not built.
He's not svelte.
He's not jacked
He's
like
your
some of the other
normal
ones.
svelte. Okay,
But
Sasquatch.
he has a silver back, which makes him very gorilla-ish, right? He also has an elongated snout. So almost like a werewolf. He's not Dogman. He's not Dogman. This one goes back pre-Dogman days. And he was reported in the newspapers of the area as Bearilla. Somewhere between a bear and a gorilla, right? I'm like,
I want the job in newspapers of naming things that they come across.
yes.
I want that to be my job. What is your job? I name cryptids in newspapers. You're welcome.
Yeah, I named Barilla. There we go. Yeah. I always thought Magilla Gorilla when I heard that. So, but that's because I'm old. But Bearilla.
So what did he do? How did they find him?
Okay, so you ready for this?
No.
There was a boy who was fishing.
Did he have a stick?
He caught 12 fish, and this thing comes out of the woods to steal his fish. What did he do? He fought it. He chased it. And this thing bit him on the leg and tore his leg pretty good. And then that's when he let the fish go. And he went to the hospital to figure out what was going on. That's why it got reported on in the newspaper.
You guys are tough up here.
I know. I mean, down in Florida.
North Carolina, we just run. We're like, yeah, you're good. You can have it. We're fine. You can have this old mountain.
Yeah, I think Florida man is underrated.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely. I think these guys are taking on Bearillas.
Yeah.
So, but he described it for the paper, and that's where they came up with the name Bearilla. And I love that. That's just one of those. He needs a place like Cocaine Bear. There needs to be a place with Bearilla.
Was he ever seen again?
He was seen again in 2011. Guess when that first sighting took place?
No, I'm not going to guess.
1960.
Okay, good.
So, but he was seen again in 2011 by several students at a nearby high school who described him after having a strange encounter and swearing they didn't know the original story. They said they were attacked by a silverback gorilla. They thought that escaped from the zoo. Now, that's another fun thing when you're researching these things, like the big ones, like Poplick Monster, down in Louisville, and some of these other ones. They're always it escaped from the circus, or it escaped from a zoo, or escaped from a traveling carnival. If every cryptid we've ever explored actually did escape from a zoo or a carnival or a circus, there were no animals in any carnival or circus ever because they all escaped. It was the only way to explain there's so many sightings. Okay, so we've had a snake, we've had our Bigfoot. All right, now it's time to get. Are we ready to get weird?
I thought we were already weird.
No, we're just scratching the surface. So.
Okay, no, let's get
All
weird.
right,
Everybody
so-
ready to get weird?
Ready to get weird?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're moving into the more obscure cryptids. All right, now there's always something with these monsters that they're hundreds of years old. They're never 50 years ago, never 60 years ago. It's always 160 years ago, or 200 years ago, or 500 years ago, like
They
the
don't
serpent.
know when these things' birthdays are.
No, they don't know,
So
they don't
I
know.
don't think this
So-
is a good measure of anything.
But this one's not that old.
Okay.
And I know you know this one. So this is, it's often called the Evansville creature. Sometimes it's called the Crawfordsville incident, but it's actually from a town called Ghent in Kentucky, right on the Indiana border. And Ghent, there was a lovely lady who was out swimming and tubing, in the lovely Ohio River. And as she was there, something brushed her leg. And then she was a little concerned, because they were out in Ohio. It's okay. It's probably catfish, something.
It's not a gator like Florida. Go
Yeah, no. And grabs her leg and pulls her under. And she panics and she screams. Now, the beautiful thing about this is we have several witnesses that saw her get pulled under. She gets back up quickly and she starts, paddling a little faster, and then it grabs her again. And this time she's down, and they go get her and finally pull her out. And she's panicking, and her leg has claw marks down the leg. Now in Florida we would have said, oh, it's a gator got her. But she has 3 claw marks with a goo dripping off of her leg. So, very strange encounter. Now, no one sees much of anything, but she says it was a reptilian hand that grabbed her. Now, what's fun about this?
How is anything about that fun? I'm out swimming, something gores my leg and puts goo all over it. Nothing about that is fun.
Well, she goes again to the hospital. They investigate. They cannot identify the goo. They try, and then she's convinced. She tells the papers what happened, and they look into it, and they realize just a few months before this is 1955, a movie came out called Creature from the Black Lagoon. So that's obviously, this is some sort of attempt to cash in on Creature from the Black Lagoon, right? Gotta be.
Sure.
So it's dismissed. It just kind of goes away. But she sticks to that story for a long time. But the next day in the papers, something happened in the town of Kelly, Kentucky, that same day that happened to her. Strange lights in the sky. A small backwoods cabin attacked by silver men with gray eyes and green glow about
How is
them.
that similar to the reptilian lady?
Well, it's the same exact day of the Kelly Hopkinsville Goblins encounter.
Oh, that's the goblins.
The Goblins, we did a whole episode on that. That same day is the day this incident happens less than 100 miles away. Now, the other thing that ties these two in together, lights in the sky are reported all over Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, just this whole area is a hotbed of UFO activity for about 3 days. And so she no longer thinks she was attacked by the creature from the Black Lagoon. She was convinced she had been grabbed by a little green man from Mars. Now, the Kelly Hopkinsville Goblins, for those of you familiar with that, that's probably one of the most documented UFO cases right over here in Kelly, Kentucky. The thing about that, which is interesting, is they weren't green. They were silver. And they were what we would consider now a gray type alien encounter. But because the newspaper mentioned they had this green glow about them, the newspaper, of course, your guy who named the Barilla, also said, what would you call these things with a green glow?
Let's see, you're putting me on the spot here. I would call them glowy scars.
Glowy scars, that works. But anyway,
That's probably not what they named them.
they called them the Little Green Men.
Oh,
And that's where we get the term Little Green Men, comes from right here in Kentucky. And it stuck, even though they weren't green. Yeah, so we get some interesting little history there, but that's why that Crawfordsville incident, I think, kind of stands out a little bit. Now, just south of Ghent, we get a werewolf.
Do we?
Yes.
What kind of werewolf?
All right, so again, we would call them now more dogman, right? This is known in Ohio as the Dogman of Defiance, but he actually crosses that Ohio River and heads over into Kentucky. And there, now the thing about this, now Dogman, for those who don't know, every person we've ever interviewed about a Dogman has said one thing, right? What do they always say, Erica, when they ask us? What do they say? What they describe, what did you see? What do they say?
A werewolf.
They say, it looked like a freaking werewolf.
A werewolf.
Yeah, but they don't, I know it sounds crazy, but it looked like a freaking werewolf. They don't say freaking. They don't say freaking.
I
But,
do.
you know, they use another F word. But, and they will, sit you down and go, I know, it's crazy. But, and it's amazing to me when they describe it. It's very much the elongated snout, the long hands, the long arm, extra long arms, talons that they describe as being, razor sharp. I'm like, did it cut you? No, but it looked sharp.
Listen, you can tell a razor sharp claw from a distance.
Okay.
You can.
I would like to test it.
Yeah, Why? Why would that be a good plan? You know what I'd like to, can you rip up
Just
my
give
arm?
me that,
I
get
just want
some
to see
evidence.
how sharp your claws are.
But now the fun thing about Dogman of Defiance is if that's not scary enough, he carries a whoop-ass stick. He carries a tree trunk that he carries around to smack you senseless with. So
it's an armed dog.
It's an armed Dogman, yes, with a big club. And because again, we can't have nice things in Kentucky.
I want to see that cosplay. I want to see Dogman with a big club.
With a big club?
Cosplay.
Yeah. Now the other thing about this one is this is actually one of the ones that wears pants. So he's been seen with jeans.
So it is a werewolf.
He is totally
That's
werewolf.
legitimately a werewolf.
Now most of the other Dogmen, sightings and things we've discussed have weird, kind of unusual takes to them. They, they're never clothed, and some people always get that sick feeling when they see them. That's the other thing they get. It's similar to our wonderful friend Mothman over in Point Pleasant, that which hey, what Mothman is Mothman. But everybody who we've discussed who's seen it, including some of the original witnesses we got to interview for Eerie Appalachia, our book, they talked about that sick feeling they had, and that's what some of these Dogman witnesses, they will tell you, no, I couldn't eat for days, I couldn't sleep for days, that thing was in my nightmares. So it's got something otherworldly to it that seems to just...
We've recently had a rash of Dogman sightings. I don't know if you guys know that, but the amount of Dogman sightings, especially up here around a particular location, have increased dramatically, because we get emails and stuff with people asking us questions and things like that, and they're reporting it. And where are they reporting it from?
You guys know the area? Anybody want to take a wild guess? Way in the back, our expert. Land Between the Lakes. Yeah, LBL. Our wonderful friends that do another podcast that you should all watch called, and it's actually on YouTube, it's called Hellbent Holler. And they've been investigating that quite a bit recently. And we've been flooded with emails. I get about a dozen emails a day from people telling us ghost stories and monster stories and things like that. But the ones from Land Between the Lakes are crazy. And now these are not Dogman of Defiance. These are not wearing blue jeans and carrying a stick. These are out to get you. They are brutal. They have found so many dead animals in the area.
And missing people.
Then there are dozens of missing people in that area. But yet it's the #1 camping destination in Kentucky right now. So, make sure you pack your bags and then notify your loved ones.
We actually got a question the other day on the podcast. They asked us if we thought, because we're experts on this.
Yeah, because we talk about it, so everybody thinks we're experts.
Yeah, so we're experts. And they were like, do you think a 357 would stop a dog man? And I was like, first of all, we're not going to give advice, but maybe don't get that close. But and then I had to point out that the world's largest grizzly bear was killed by a girl with a .22. So, so think about that. The world record grizzly shot. So, anyway, so that's a new recent thing that we are getting sightings as of like last week that people were seeing things there. So if you are interested in investigating these, there are teams in the area. That is one of the things we do is we reach out to paranormal teams, we reach out to Bigfoot hunting teams, ghost hunting teams, and all this other stuff to get their info because we are not experts. We are not field people. I am a 50-year-old epileptic. I don't go into the Land Between the Lakes unless, I've got a nice RV. And I'm sure Erica would just know about the minute we actually hit the signs. So that was, that's with all the reports, I'm just not going, period. I don't care if you have an RV. I'm like, no, if Dogman, they can claim that land. It's okay with me. They can have it.
Yeah.
So, because they seem very aggressive. That's the thing with most of the reports. They're coming into campsites and things like that and growling at the edge of their whatever it is. And we call it preternatural because we don't know what it is, right? Could be a werewolf, who knows? That would be cool. But whatever it is, it seems to be increasing its attack. But a lot of that is because we're going into areas we've never been before. A lot of people go, oh, there's more Bigfoot sightings, but we're taking over more land than we ever have before and things like that. So more and more of these things that have been spottily reported are coming up more frequently.
And now I'm going to go to Louisa, Kentucky, over near Paintsville, Pikeville area, a little north of that, right? Just south of Ashland. We'll get to Ashland in a minute. But Louisa is where my family land is, and we have our own holler monster. And this is one of those fun ones because when these people describe some of these holler monsters, you sit there and go, because it doesn't fit Dogman, it doesn't fit your usuals. So this one, it haunts the hills of Goble Ridge area, and I was told it as a child, and I hated it because it was the dumbest thing ever. So
you wanted a cool cryptid?
I wanted a cool cryptid, and this is my family cryptid. It has the misshapen head of a man. It has the body of a cow.
Wait, it gets better.
It gets better. He has a wooden leg. Does this not sound like something out of South Park? Right? It is called, because we can have nice things, the bench leg of Goble Ridge. And he jumps from tree to tree.
This one I want to see.
Yes.
I want to watch a cow jumping around
from tree to tree with the head of a man.
Yeah.
And then if you are a bad person, he uses that leg. That's his whoop-ass stick, and he knocks you off your horse. So.
But where does this story originate from?
Now,
because
there
is I've now seen this. I went there and saw the tree.
The bench leg tree.
There is a tree called the bench leg tree.
And it's this just crazy old looking withered tree, something out of Tim Burton's Nightmares. And now the thing is about this, I had heard this story my whole life, and I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever. But then, as we wrote about it, I wrote about it in a blog, and suddenly I got a letter from a man who lives in Lexington, and he actually came here yesterday. And we found out that he's like, there's some truth to that. I'm like, what? I'm like, because there's a story behind the bench light. The story of the bench light was that he was originally a tinker who would walk along the roads and he would fix pots and pans for people with his ox-driven cart, and he would walk along the roads, and some bandits decided, hey, he might have some money, let's take him out. So they went to rob him, and he fought back by grabbing a big stick. And so when they murdered him, they buried him underneath this tree, and to hide, they threw in his stick, and to hide the crime, they killed his ox and buried that on top of the grave. And so I'm like, ooh, now suddenly he's a spirit of vengeance. He's not as stupid as I thought, right? And then, but this man who came,
pedal, like upright?
no, he was on 4 legs. Yeah, it was definitely 4 legs. That was what I saw anyway. So, and every description I'd heard of it was 4-legged running and stuff, just with that wooden clumpy leg. And every once in a while, a family would see like some weird hole. And they go, oh, that's the bench leg. He came by here last night. That's why there's a hole in the ground. So, yeah.
Which leg was wooden?
The front right.
Okay.
Front right. So just that's important. That's important. So
If you were going to cosplay,
yeah, the bench leg.
I'm just saying, cosplay opportunities abound in this conversation.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right. So that's my holler monster. Now, a lot of people will go, okay, well, none of these, this is all folklore. This is all legends. This is all, tall tales. I think we have to talk about one of the biggest tall tales, and that was Daniel Boone. With Boone Tavern, not too far from here. Boone's Burrow, not too far from here. Fort Boone. He killed a Bigfoot, according to him. Although he called it by its original name, a Yahoo. So again, we can't have nice things. Remember that, right? So, which I think comes from Yeehahoo, which is actually where we get Yahoo from for us, which is Jonathan Swift in Gulliver's Travels. That was one of the creatures that he talked about. And so all these old original pioneers would talk, when they find something they couldn't name, they would give it a name from Gulliver's Travels because they were all fans of that. So that's why we get the Yahoos and the Lubbers and things like that, and the Bogies. So now we're going to talk about the Bogies.
Are we talking about, so he killed
a Bigfoot, he said. So now,
how old was he when he killed the Bigfoot?
19, before he started going really crazy with his explorations and stuff. So, but you can find that in his papers, and also in his biography, which was written by our other favorite cryptid hunter president, Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt wrote a diary of Daniel Boone, and he talked about him killing a Bigfoot. So Teddy Roosevelt wrote about another Bigfoot encounter, with another pioneer and stuff. So Teddy was big into cryptids. He went hunting the snallygaster. Another fun that we love these names of these monsters. It's a creature with tentacles out of its mouth, but it looked like a thunderbird, so it looked like a pterodactyl, and it would drain the blood out of you as it flew by, and it terrorized several states. It's famous for Maryland and Pennsylvania, but it came all the way over here. Scrabble, West Virginia, went to Ohio, went to Kentucky, and it's kind of like Jeepers Creepers, where it disappears for like 20 years and then comes back. But Teddy Roosevelt was so convinced that it was real, he postponed a diplomatic meeting because he wanted to shoot it with a cannon.
Like you do.
Like you do. He heard that Napoleon's nephew had shot it and it bounced off with a pistol, so he was going to try a cannon. So there you go. Leave it to Teddy. But anyway, so Daniel Boone, may have done that. But then the biggest one of all is one we discovered writing Eerie Appalachia. And this is one of my favorites because not a lot of people know this. If you haven't read our book, then you don't know this. So, family reaches out to me from Huntington, West Virginia, and they said, we were going through our grandfather's letters, and we found something weird, and we think you'd be interested because you do this stuff. And I went,
Yep.
yes, I'm on my way. So the letter is just a bunch of stuff going on. So it's like, going to Mama's, meeting and looking forward to the wedding over in Chapel Hill and all this other stuff. And it's from their nephew who's in Olympia, Kentucky.
Okay.
And he's working at a mine in Olympia. And he sends them this letter, and it just goes on and on and on. And he says, odd thing happened in the mine. We blew open a new wall into a new vein. This is a limestone mine. We're looking into, getting a new vein of limestone. We blew open a wall, and there were several things in there eating a bear. These things had long, stringy hair, big, bulging eyes, and talons like a hawk. And they were wearing rudimentary clothes, but he doesn't say rudimentary, he says, scraggy clothes. And the men were sore afraid. So we're afraid to go back into the mine. What should we do? See you at the wedding, Bob.
I think my favorite part of this is he wrote a letter, and in those times it wasn't like the post office is today. So you're sending this letter that could potentially take weeks to arrive. So are you all just going to be standing outside the mine going, we got to wait for the post? I'm going to see what Granny thinks we should do. Like, what are you doing waiting that long? But go ahead. I just thought that was hysterical.
Now, I don't know what Granny sent back, but she kept all those letters in this nice little box. And so the next letter is there. And I was so happy because I'm ready to read the next letter. And again, had a great time at the wedding. Oops. I know. Sorry, but it had a great time at the wedding. Wonderful, wonderful food. It was good seeing Cousin Eddie. And we're going to do what you said about the mine. We're going to make them get some gunmen to kill those creatures. See you next week. Letter 3. Letter 3 was, they came and killed them. They also got a couple more bears, and now we're back to work. And blah 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 blah. See you at the reunion. It was can't wait for Christmas soon. Blah blah. So I'm like, wow, I've got dates on these letters, and what a strange story, right? So I start looking through the newspapers of the area, and there's not much in Rose Hill for those familiar with the town, but Lexington paper. Guess what? That week had an ad from the Rose Hill Mining, and they said, wanted gunmen, inquire within. And so, now the scary thing about Rose Hill Mine is the fact that it's still there. But they had one of the worst mining disasters in history about 2 years later, where they blasted into another wall, but it didn't go off. So they went up to figure out what's going wrong, and we know it did work, and 23 men lost their lives that we know of. The problem with those papers in those times is they didn't document undocumented workers that were not, town folk. So we think there may have been a lot more than actually died. We're currently researching in the area is a little south of us near Somerset, where in the caves in that area, where a true life cult was working out of one of the caves there, and supposedly they woke up a six-legged serpent, not a six-legged lizard, a six-legged serpent, and that it attacked a small town, and it very much fits the Crosswick serpent that we did on another episode over in Ohio. So maybe there are some underground serpents in the area, so who knows. You had a question?
Is there a connection between the creatures in the mine and the Moonite people?
The Moonite people is a fun, the Moonite people is a Cherokee. I don't like saying myth or legend when it comes to the First Peoples, because it's not even folklore. This is what happened. This is their history. And the Moonite people, they went to war with. They lived in caves in mostly our area, the Smoky Mountains and Appalachia. And And these were people who could only come out at night, and they had very big eyes, which fits our Olympia bogeymen a little bit, and they could only come out at night because they were living underground so much. And the Cherokee hated them so much, they attacked them on a full moon because they couldn't see. And then that's how they destroyed them. And there's carvings of them, and there's offerings to them. And they drove them into the earth. So yeah, there could be ties to our bogeymen, it could be ties to a lot of things. The Moon Eye people it's an interesting story. And then some people claim, because moon-eyed sometimes means blue-eyed, that there was a Welsh prince in the 1300s who may predate Leif Erikson coming to America, because he left his kingdom, he was chased out of Wales, and then came across the big sea. And there was one person came back and said he's founded a new colony across the sea in a new world before even Columbus or any of these guys. And so supposedly that's why when the European settlers came over here, they would occasionally see a Cherokee or another native with blue eyes. And they'd say, oh no, there was this great king that came to us with blue eyes and blonde hair. And so that legend comes from there. And that's, so we don't know if that's a colonial legend or that, but they sometimes say he's the founder of the Moon-Eyed people. So it's fun how folklore works, gang. It's fun. It's history, but it's also weird.
Other questions?
Any others? Oh, yeah.
Do you consider any of the feral Appalachian people to be cryptids, really?
Feral Appalachians. Now that goes back to there's a term called wild man that people don't understand 100%. They were either feral, people who lived in the wilds, or sometimes people say wild man was a description of Bigfoot, or Sasquatch. And some people would go hunting the wild man of Kentucky or the wild man of Ohio or whatever area they were. The wild man of Cumberland Gap's probably one of the most famous ones. There's one in Florida that's my favorite called the wild man of Ocheesee Pond. And what he was stealing stuff from the nearby town to the point where they actually formed a posse to catch him. And they did. And they didn't know what to do with him because he was 8 feet tall and hairy and didn't speak any language and was growling at them. And if you look at the picture from the newspaper, they didn't take a picture, they sketched it. It's this big King Kong looking guy in a cage that only goes up to his waist. It's like the most useless cage ever. And there's these two guys with guns like trying to hold up, and they're as big as that. But the story is we have real documentation of this because they didn't know what to do with him. They sent him to the governor in Tallahassee, because Florida. And then they sent him on the back of a stagecoach. So I'm picturing like a Wild West U-Haul with this big gorilla thing on the back. It gets to the governor's office. The governor goes, what the hell is this? Why'd you send it to me? So he signs it over to the state hospital, and they take it over there. So it's basically the state mental hospital. And we have his admission papers, and it's just Wild Man of Ocheesee Pond, and his signature is literally a hand print. Not even an X. And it's huge. And that's the only documentation we have of this thing. Until it was taken to be shaved, and then all we know after that is it died in captivity. And it was supposedly buried somewhere on the property of the Florida hospital, but the problem with that is that graveyard is now under where the new Florida State Hospital has been built. So, and they did not move any of the graves from that original graveyard underneath. So to get DNA testing or anything.
They don't do that in Florida. They don't move graves. They just put like a highway over it.
Right over there, yep.
Right over.
So, we're Cal Prairie Cemetery. We're still fighting because I-75 was built right over it. And we're now finding out, this was very historical. So, but that's what we do. But anyway, gang, I think we're about out of time. So.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? All right. Well, you can find us. We're in by the big number 2 in the vendor room. We're in booth 422. My wife's there illustrating right now and signing books, and I'm signing books, and Erica's gonna have to leave us this afternoon, so want her autograph come real quick. But you can find us on all the major networks twice a week, now sometimes 3 because we do special episodes. It's called Eerie Travels. Just go to eerietravels.com and like, share, and subscribe. We'd love to see y'all join us.
Send listener stories. We love listener stories. We do special episodes. We get a ton of listener stories and listener questions and stuff like that. So please feel free, because I know a public forum like this kind of goes,
always.
let me talk about this weird crap I saw out the window.
This thing with the head of a goat and the body of a man, and that sort of thing. But the one thing we do ask is that please, if you do see something, say something. That's the classic. It is document these things, because crazy Uncle Joe saw Bigfoot on the road in 1977. Well, suddenly, if you put that into Expedition Bigfoot's database or Outpost Bigfoot or the BFRO, and suddenly you compare it, it's like, wait, he said that happened on what road in Kentucky in 1973? Well, guess what? There's 7 other sightings there, and suddenly at that same time, crazy Uncle Joe ain't crazy anymore. And then we can finally get some less, this is, it's stupid to look into cryptids, it's stupid to look into ghosts. And when we started this, it's kind of still going on a little bit, but not as much. But like the ghost hunting people wouldn't talk to the Bigfoot hunting people. The Bigfoot hunting people won't talk to the UFO people. The UFO people won't talk to anybody. But now we're starting to learn there's a little mix-up in all this stuff. Sometimes if there's an area with Bigfoot activity, there's often ghost activity. There's UFOs sighted in the area and stuff like that. And once you start opening that little bit, you realize there's a lot of overlaps and stuff. And that's where we get things like, the Bridgewater Triangle, the Tampa Triangle, the Appalachian Triangle, where Mothman is like at the top, but we get even more. So, keep your eyes open and please report. And as we always say, we'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much.